Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Namofsky. Today's episode, Successful Estate Administration, Protecting People, Pets, and You. Cheryl, I'm coming back to you. Based on the real-life case that we just heard Barb talk about, is there one thing that stands out as the biggest missing piece in successful estate administration?
Well, it really comes down to communication. So, for example, the greatest determinant of successful estate administration is how well you communicate with your executor, your beneficiaries, and your trusted advisors while you're still living. So, case in point with Gene Hackman, he comes from my parents' generation, or maybe slightly older than my parents, where you didn't have a lot of discussion around inheritance, around sharing your estate plans. It really wasn't talked about openly. And that's a real mistake we make today, because we have to set our executors and our beneficiaries up for success. And the only way we can do that is by open lines of communication. You have to prepare them for success and for what they're going to come up against.
So, Barb, Cheryl is just talking about communication, which is really important in whatever it is that you do. But communication must be even more important in cases involving vulnerable individuals.
That's absolutely correct, and clearly it turns out that that Gene Hackman and his wife were such individuals, and there hadn't been plans put in place in other aspects of their lives. There was a case in England, again, just very recently. It was a father, 76-year-old father, who had a son who had born with, he was blind, had autism, and he basically could communicate with a keyboard. So he was looking after him. The daughter would come out to visit once a week and give the father a day off and spend the day with her brother. And then one day she arrived, and it turned out her father had passed away. Her brother was near death, lying beside him because he could not communicate outside. Now, this family had tried to go they call them councils in England, for special help, but were unable to get it. And after this death, they were able to bring in a caregiver's emergency plan, but it only worked where it was known that a caregiver was weakening and so on, and didn't deal with the case of a caregiver having some form of a heart attack and so on. Now, there are, as we know nowadays, things where you can have people call you once a day. If you don't have close family, at least there are services. However, clearly this wasn't done in this case, and nor did it seem like there was anything of that nature in place for the Hackmans either. So it's something, again, it's not just after death, it's before death that a focus needs to be made and plans need to be made for people that are vulnerable.
So, Cheryl, clearly one message from the case Barb has just mentioned is the importance of pre-planning as well as communication, as we've mentioned. If this is understood, why are so many estates still messy and fraught with disagreements, anger, and heartbreaks?
Well, Liz, there's a lot of people out there who are not prepared to die, but there's way more people out there who are not prepared to manage or settle an estate. So when people think about estate planning, maybe they think it's time to get my affairs in order. So what they'll do is they'll think about who they want to choose as an executor, powers of attorney, and then they'll go to their lawyer and get their wills drawn up and their powers of attorney drawn up. And that's where they stop. And that's the planning part. But if you really want your estate to be settled successfully, you have to focus on the administrative side. And that is the tiresome and really big job of cataloging and listing all of your assets, all of your property, all your trusted contact people you have to list. And think about your executor is going to walk in and everything in your wallet they're going to have to deal with. So canceling your cards, your bank accounts, you name it. So it's that extra step and really, really focusing on the preparation side, the administration side. What exactly is your executor going to have to do for you? And have you laid it all out so they don't have to be Sherlock Holmes walking into your house and figuring it out on the fly?
So, Cheryl, we've got about a minute before we go to break, but from what I can take from your perspective is that the executor is key when it comes to handling an estate, correct?
Yes, correct. And it's, of course, the executor is key, but it's really the person writing the will, so the testator, that is going to set the executor up for success. So if you're asking someone to be your executor, make sure you go the extra mile and put everything together for them. So, as I said before, they're not going to be that detective trying to figure it all out.
Okay, so quickly before we go to break, when do the responsibilities kick in as an executor, and who's the executor responsible to?
So let's say if you were asked to be executor for person A and they pass away, if you start any of the duties of an executor, you have then entered into the role of the executor. If you wish to recuse yourself, you have to do that before you do any of the duties. And usually it starts when the executor is planning the funeral.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Don't go away.